What is going on, everybody? Welcome to High School Never Ends, a pop punk dad podcast. I'm Wingman Steve.
And I'm Chris, 183.
And listen, we apologize. We interrupt our old school album breakdown for January. We have a very special guest with us. He is the epitome of we all got older, but we are still young. He's got that eternal youth. Please welcome Ken Vasoli. What's happening, man?
Not too much. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, this is definitely a trip. I had mentioned when we hit record, been a fan of the band since the absolute very beginning. I think I've been to more starting line shows than any other band. I'm like around 25, and so it's a bit of a trip. We've said hello here and there some places, but it's pretty cool to sit here. Thank you for joining us.
Of course. Yeah, it's good to be having an extended conversation. Thanks for your service.
Yes, and my extreme apologies. Every one of those 25 times that I've seen you, I'm usually the guy who screams out "I love you, Kenny" at the top of my voice. I lose it a little bit, but I just want you to know that you're the fans that we love you. So hopefully that doesn't offend you.
No, thank you. It's mutual. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And all right, so we're gonna hit you with some questions and just chat a little bit. And so on our show, we talk a lot about Drive-Thru Records. We talk a lot about kind of pop punk and that nostalgia. And we don't consider pop punk like a negative term. Hopefully that doesn't offend you that you're in this world. It's all music. But we talk a lot about Drive-Thru Records and a lot of the bands from that kind of era and what these bands, what their experiences were, right? So we've talked to the guys from Midtown, we've talked to the guys from Homegrown, and you've throughout your career you've been very honest about some of the kind of the label stuff and the fallout. You hear it in the music. So I'm just kind of curious, looking back on the whole thing, what are your thoughts on Drive-Thru Records in general?
Yeah, I guess it's overall. I think the takeaway is I have a lot of gratitude towards Drive-Thru Records, and I, like you, was coming up as a fan of Drive-Thru. I went to go see Blink and saw, they were called River Phoenix at the time. I saw them open up, and they eventually became Phoenix TX, and that was my first exposure to the Drive-Thru Records logo. And right away, I really connected with that band and had never heard of them before that show, brought that full length home and was playing drums to it and shit like that. And then my friends from high school had a Drive-Thru Records compilation and we just wore that thing out. We loved it so much. And then once I joined up with Starting Line guys, when they were talking about trying to get signed, Drive-Thru was always the top of the mountain for us. It was always the summit. And Matt Watts had befriended Charlie Adams, who was a Drive-Thru Records intern before starting his own label called We the People. And then we went out to California to meet with them and were getting introduced to the Drive-Thru Records owners, Richard and Stephanie, back then. And I just, as a 15, 16-year-old going through this, it was totally, a pinch me kind of moment. We got taken out to the Glass House by them to go see Jimmy Eat World. It was also my first time seeing them. We got to go bowling with Corey Feldman. It was just this storybook first trip to California. It's what Left Coast Envy is about that trip. So I have a lot of fond memories with it. I know that there's been some muddy waters with the relationships that have correlated with the Drive-Thru Records people, and there's been some fragments throughout the years. And yeah, I'm not as close with them now as I was back then, but I don't have horror stories like some of the other bands do with their relationship to Drive-Thru and Richard and Stephanie. And I think that that's in great part due to timing. Sure. We were upstream to MCA pretty quickly after really just releasing the EP officially and formally on Drive-Thru. And then we recorded Say It Like You Mean It for Drive-Thru. And then I believe in the process of us recording that record, MCA had kind of made the decision that they wanted to take us on. And then by that point, we had barely even gotten to know the people at MCA, and then it became Geffen. So it was just kind of a whirlwind of labels in those first like 5 to 6 years. But I think I probably have more good things to say about Drive-Thru Records than negative things to say. And I've really tried to focus on those positives at this point in my life, because I know that despite whatever complications had happened in the relationship since then, I have to, remember my roots and recognize that we most likely wouldn't be in the position that we are in right now had it not been for Drive-Thru taking a chance on us and, fostering our talent for those years.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of the issues that you kind of hear about, and again, we're not music insiders, we're just fans. But a lot of it does seem it wasn't kind of from that beginning of Drive-Thru Records. It is when the bands kind of got upstream to the other labels. When you talk about Geffen and stuff like that, and that's where the waters I think get pretty muddied. Everyone we've talked to has always said good things about the label. I have just a quick question about a particular song, and if there were any label influences on why. So one of my favorite Starting Line songs back in the day is "Leaving," right? And I don't think I've heard a lot of questions, interviews with you and stuff. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody ask you. There's a lyric change in there, right? We go from "As Weekdays and Weekdays Unwind," which is what's on the EP, to "Let's Travel Back in Time." Was that just hey, this is a better line and we figured it out, or did you guys have somebody kind of push you and suggest that?
Wow, yeah, I forgot that it was different on the EP. That was Trombino actually that made that suggestion. He, I think, just wanted to simplify it, if I remember correctly. But I do remember that being his suggestion. It was just like really just a trim of the fat moment, and he didn't suggest edits in the songs all that often. It was usually like, the backups in like Given the Chance. They're like, what can I say that can explain? Like that was, even though like he wasn't much of a singer, he would like explain things like that, which I was really couldn't even wrap my head around harmonies at that point. So that was really welcomed advice. And so anything that was an edit in the song structure, I always took it very seriously when it came from Mark.
Sure.
Cool. Yeah. Look, I have an actual question for you, Ken, but I definitely want to just circle back on one thing. So as a 15 or 16-year-old, like I remember living here in Western Pennsylvania, I wouldn't go to the other side of Pittsburgh, let alone California. It just seems like it's crazy. Did you know that things were going to work out going all the way across the country, or did you not know what to expect going all the way out there?
Yeah, it was, I did not know if things would work out. I really had no context for any of it. Like I didn't know how the music industry even worked, to be honest. I was finishing up high school at that point. Yeah. So I was like honestly coming home from cross country practice when they told me that we're getting signed to Drive-Thru. Like I remember I got the call like when I was like just soaked in sweat from practicing with cross country, and I was just thrilled to like be getting like I still remember us like in Tom's living room like, on Priceline, like when you could name your price and we were like actually like typing in like what we wanted to pay. Like I don't know how that works, but it actually worked out very well for us, and we got really cheap flights out there. And then our flight got canceled going out the night that we were supposed to, and then we ended up staying at like a Radisson like at the airport and like getting Chinese food, and it was like a disgusting room, but it was still like the greatest time of my life. Like we were all like just crammed into one room. Like I think I slept on the floor. And then when we got to California, Charlie and his business partner Dustin had picked us up in this like 1980 DeVille Cadillac that was they named El Jefe, and they pretty much just like gave us the car to like tool around town. And yeah, then we went to Pomona and went to the Glass House. Like I fell asleep on the beach that day, and like all my pictures are just like I'm beet red with like sunburn. And so that's where the sunburn line came from. It was really like, I'm sure I had like high hopes that more would come of it, but I was honestly just so thrilled to be even traveling out of state, like, and going to the West Coast for the first time, that it was sort of out of my mind that anything like bigger or better could come from it. It just seemed like the first in a long line of like cool things that I would get to do with these guys.
Sure. So that actually does transition pretty well into my actual question. In the early days of the starting line with you guys, and obviously you being, fairly young, were there some bands that you personally or your band like being around, or maybe you learned a lot from in the early days?
Kind of seemed like a family, there was the Drive-Thru Invasion, label or not, even the guys that weren't on the label, there did kind of seem like, in these 5-6 years, everybody was real cool.
Absolutely. It was definitely a family dynamic. They really, they let us stay at their house anytime we were out in California, which was an immense help to us. And yeah, I remember like kicking it with like, Chris from Dashboard was like playing like his like acoustic songs like at their house, and everybody was just like fawning over him. And like our first tour ever was with the RX Bandits, and I'm still so close with those guys, and definitely credit them to taking us under their wing. And like I'm sure we weren't their cup of tea musically, but they still like treated us like equals in every sense, and really gave us such great advice, and like really, took me on as like a little brother in such a cool way, and like let me like ride in their van, and like let me smoke weed with them, and like showed me Black Sabbath and Hella and Mates of State, and exposed me to all this like cool music. And I'll never forget that. Like I don't know that I would have like the gumption to do that if I were there in their position, and I really value that. And of course, the Newfound Glory guys, like they were the first band that was ever like touring in a bus to take us on tour. And they pretty much, shared every amenity that they had with us, always letting us come on the bus and hang with them, always joking with us, like Ian coming on stage and playing with us, letting me come up on stage with them and play a song. It was, like a true brotherhood with a lot of those bands.
How long did it feel like you guys were on tour on the road before things started? Like there must have been a point where it kind of seemed like to me, like starting line really like the trajectory went up quick. And maybe it was just because, there was a killer single, there was a couple of killer singles, but obviously The Best of Me is, one of the biggest songs of this generation, this era. Did it seem like it was overnight? Did it seem like you guys were grinding for years? Like how did it feel for you?
Yeah, it didn't feel like an overnight thing, that's for sure. It felt pretty incremental. Like that first RX Bandits tour, some of the like the first show was in like Grand Rapids, Michigan, and at the intersection. And I remember it being like, maybe like 60 to 100 people, like at the most full. And like for us, maybe like 30 people. And like really no one kind of giving a shit. Like, and there were a lot of shows like that. And we were, like put on early in the day at a lot of these festivals, and like Warped Tour even like would love putting us on at like 12 o'clock, 12:30, just like as soon as doors open. So it always felt like we were this, I don't know, like secondary kind of interest in those early days. And there wasn't like a one moment, even when The Best of Me like video and single and all that came out, like I did start to notice, like when I was staying up late and I would watch MTV, I would be like, oh shit, like they're playing the video. But even that wasn't like, it didn't wave a magic wand over our career, and then all of a sudden like the shows were like super packed or anything like that. Like even before The Best of Me hit that hard, there was just like a little bit more like buzz happening. I guess just because we got signed to Drive-Thru and we were like from the Jersey, like tri-state area, like we really cut our teeth like in Jersey, like moose lodges and firehouses and stuff like that. So I think because there wasn't much of an internet presence for anybody at that point, like word of mouth like did wonders, and we garnered like a little bit of just local hype because we were, you know, the Pennsylvania, like Jersey adjacent band that was getting, you know, getting the attention from a favorite label of the area. And yeah, I guess like once we started touring with Newfound and Good Charlotte and stuff like that, that's when there was maybe a tipping point where we could stand on our own two legs and do tours of our own, and people would actually show up.
I'll highlight a couple of fun like stories that I would never forget at start. So at the Warped Tour stage, when you guys had the Drive-Thru Invasion tour, I remember during your set, it was at Randall's Island, New York, which is just a cloud of dirt everywhere because of the mosh pits. Somebody crowd surfed and hit me in the eye and knocked my contact lens out, and I couldn't see the rest of the day. I put a bandana on my face. I looked like fucking Tupac for the rest of the day because but I stayed in that pit. And then one of my favorite memories, I guess, of seeing you guys live is when you opened for Real Big Fish, right? So these are two bands they're in the same scene, but a little bit different. And I think it was the last day of your tour. It was in New Jersey. And I think it was you came in the crowd and you were heckling Aaron, and he was wearing a shirt that said the starting line sucks dog balls or something like this. It just seems like there was such a like hilarious energy between you guys.
Oh yeah, where do you remember where that was? Sorry, you might have said
it was in Birch Hill, I think. It was in Jersey. Was the place Birch Hill? Yeah,
that sounds right. Yeah, there was a lot of like funny business, in between. Like Aaron is just like one of the most hilarious guys. He's just such a character, and yeah, there was just like a very like funny dynamic going on, and like very like pranky sort of dynamic going on between us and Real Big Fish. And they brought us to Europe as well too, like the only band to ever bring us to Europe. And it continued there too. Like they were such cool guys, so funny. Yeah, I don't know if Aaron still drinks, but I think he was like hitting the bottle like a little harder in that tour on the States. Like I remember there was one show that they played in DC, and I recorded it. I have the tape somewhere, and he went into the crowd, and like it just like went off the rails. Like they played Beer like 7 times.
I've seen them do that.
Yeah, like they usually do it a lot, but this time it was like even more than the band wanted to do. Like I could tell they were getting a little fed up with it too. And it seems like he's gathered himself a whole lot more since then. But yeah, they were wild, man.
We just have to put into the universe a starting line Real Big Fish reunion show at some point in the future. I just want to speak it out loud, and then maybe it'll happen.
Yeah, I would love that. And they were touring off of Cheer Up too, which is such a dope record. I always love Real Big Fish.
So good. Yeah, please do that, because they're one of my favorite bands too, and I've never seen them live, and I don't know why. Like I just always miss them. So if you do that, that'd be the best thing ever. Speaking of touring, I want to kind of shift gears not for a second, but for now, and talk about Eternal Youth. So love the sound on this album, by the way. We got a chance to really deep dive and talk about it and listen to it in depth, but first new album in a while, right? 18 years. So why was this the right time?
Well, we had toyed with the idea of releasing new music for quite a few years. I mean, we'd started writing some of those songs in like 2020. I think Granted had an acoustic demo back in 2020. And those first like 4 songs just kind of like trickled in. And I had the scheme to record just 7 inches at that point, like 2022, 2023. I was like focused on like, okay, let's just get 4 songs together at a time and just record them, 2 songs on the A side, 2 songs on the B side, and then just like call it a day and just do that like however many years, in increments. Just because I feel like everybody has full-time jobs, people live in different places. I think that, that's maybe the most attainable goal for us to write and release music. And we did, in fact, record Granted, Curveball, Blame, and another song that were meant to be on said 7-inch and had gotten it mastered and everything by Howie Weinberg. And we're like getting ready to do it. And we're like shopping it to labels, and labels were not really like turning their head at it much. And around that time, we had sort of fallen out with management. Not fallen out, but we had moved on, I'll say, from our longtime manager. And so we were talking to new people about the position of manager. And when we were talking to our now current manager, Tim, I was expressing my interest in doing this 7-inch series and just sort of riding off into the sunset doing that. Like, I still really wanted to write and record starting line music. I just had serious doubts about the legitimacy of doing a new full length. Like, personally, I felt like very let down by a lot of our contemporaries that had gone away and tried to like put out a record after an extended absence. And I felt like I didn't give a shit about those records because like they didn't like connect with me in a way that was nearly as close as the records that I grew to love from these bands. And so I didn't want to fall into that trap where I was like putting, effort into something that would be like a diminished return. And so I told Tim this. I was like, yeah, like I don't know if I want to do like full lengths anymore. I think that 7 inches are the way to go. I think it's just like a more digestible piece of music, and it's also just a more attainable thing for us. And I also like told him I just like don't know if people are going to give a shit if we record a full length. And he just said in one sentence, he just said, I think that that's just insecurity talking. And I tell everybody this, but I mean, that one sentence was like the perfect reverse psychology for me to like just puff out my chest and be like, I'm not insecure. I know I'm the most secure songwriter there is, and I can do my best work because I know how to apply the knowledge that has accumulated through all the years of doing this. And I still feel as sharp with my songwriting as ever. So yeah, I'm going to put out the best starting line full length that there ever was. And it was just like a brilliant turn of events for him to have that type of bedside manner with me, because before I just had never, I just had never been nurtured in that specific type of way. Like a lot of the like conversations in the past for this kind of thing was always felt like, like a debate or something. And then when I was talking to this guy, it was more just like an empowerment in my ability. And for the first time, I really felt like, just empowered to be writing music again with this. And also just like felt like this is my place to be doing my thing. And as soon as I really embraced the concept of it, then I was just off to the races. And I like employed this method of songwriting where I'll just try to get a song done a month. Mm-hmm. Like I heard that Bill Burr, the comedian, would just try to write 5 minutes a month. And then by the end of the year, he's got a full hour. And I thought that that's brilliant. Like I can do that. I can write 5 minutes of music like in a month. And I really just like adopted that schedule and that method. And it really has served me well. And more times than not, I could get 2 done a month. And then before we knew it, we had a bunch of songs to pick from. And getting Will Yip on board too was another huge piece of the puzzle, because my philosophy and like agenda to achieve with the music was to just create like the most raw and brutally honest like form of expression that I could, that was starting line music. You know, I feel like every record that we've put out has been like not stepped on by production, but like really heavy handed with production, you know, whether it be like string accompaniments or just like a lot of glossing in the mix, or you know, layering, just like trying to make it like as massive as possible. And I feel like the naturalism got lost on a lot of those records. I mean, you know, that's speaking generally, but like,
Sure.
I just wanted to know what it was like to just make a record that was showcasing the elements that we had on the stage. And as far as subject matter goes, just like trying to remind myself of important life lessons that I've learned along the way, and things that I need to be reminded of myself, and what is just like the most brutally honest reflection of the human condition as I possibly could. And I just didn't stop until we achieved that. And yeah, in terms of the sound, there was no like better guy to look for than Will Yip, because I think that his production style is one of the only ones I know that perfectly hits like huge sounding and natural sounding. It's usually just like one or the other. It either sounds like blowing out of the speakers explosive, or like punk and like raw, but like almost undercooked and thin. And like Will like just has always like gotten the porridge at like the perfect temperature for me.
Well, I definitely want to give you guys kudos and compliments to you and everyone on Eternal Youth, because I felt like it was like the perfect trajectory for Starting Line, right? You know, it's not Say It Like You Mean It, but you're not 16 years old writing these songs anymore. You know, this was the natural progression, and you can see that throughout your entire career. Everything that you guys have kind of put out, it seems like you're growing in a natural way. So we received it very, very well, and you guys did a tour for Eternal Youth. I want to talk just a minute about the Reconnect show. Just kind of quick, how was the nationwide tour? How did you find the reception to the new record? Because you know, we had a conversation in Alley one time where it was kind of like, do we play the old school stuff, the Say It Like You Mean It stuff, or do we play the new school stuff? And you know, you did a great job mixing that stuff up. But I'm curious, you know, what'd you feel from the audiences?
Felt great. Yeah, I couldn't have asked anything more of the audience reception with the new stuff. Like, I realized like it takes a while to really sink your teeth into a record and get to the point where it's like, you know, excitement for it being played live. And also, you know, like we're doing this like independently now too. So like, I know that it's going to maybe be a gradual trickle out to some people. But the great thing about our career and our fans is like, people are kind of like all in on us. They're kind of like either all in or just like don't even like, they're not even aware of us. So that's the thing. Like, I don't expect people to have it memorized by the time that we're playing it, especially if it's just like a few weeks or a few months deep. And that being said, like people were really keyed into it. And like when by the, you know, end, like when we were playing I See How It Is, like a lot of people, that is like a very satisfying amount of people were shouting that first line. And you know, like the How Was I Supposed to Know and Curveball, like people are like really giving it back like in the way that I had hoped. And it's relatively early on. And it feels like, if nothing else, it has its place in the set list, and it's not like a, okay, let me go grab a beer moment, which is a victory for us.
Dude, that's awesome. And so I mentioned the Reconnect shows. So I've seen starting line holiday shows in Philadelphia, in New Jersey for the last, I don't know, 10, 15 years, whatever it was. It was always kind of that Christmas, that holiday treat to get to see you guys again. Some years you're more active than others. And I think it was last year that you guys, 2024, you kind of rebranded it as Reconnect. You know, you're reconnecting with the audience. We're reconnecting with ourselves. We had a moment where we had like 6 or 7 people that were just listeners from the podcast that like got together at that show, people that flew in from different places. It was really cool. But I mean, this year it was 2 places in Philly, 2 different venues. I was at the Fillmore, and this lineup is just, so it's Ascenders of the early November, and then you get Jeff jumping on stage, you get Hidden in Plain View, and then you got Homegrown from the West Coast coming, who's they're on there kind of, you know, coming back, just got back together, doing a couple of shows here and there, probably new music coming at some point, we'll see. It's essentially like, it feels like a mini Drive-Thru reunion, and one of the bands even made a joke or a comment about that. So how do you see Reconnect like going in the future? Are we trying to construct more of these super lineups? Are you trying to like highlight, you know, up and comers? Like is there a plan? Is it just, let's see what happens?
Yeah, like we always really shoot for the moon with these lineups. Like we pretty much just throw out like every dream possibility for us. And a lot of it is reaching out to bands that we were and still are immense fans of. And that's a big part of it. And also it's all about like seeing bands that we've been friends with for a long time, or maybe haven't gotten the chance to play with in a long time. Like Homegrown is a perfect example of that. Hidden in Plain View as well. I mean, like we credit so much of our come up in Jersey to just trading shows with Hidden in Plain View. Like I think our first show ever in Jersey was thanks to Hidden in Plain View. And, it's beautiful getting to see those guys, you know, 25 years later, and like see what they're up to now, like see how old their kids are. It's a really wild trip, and we get to reminisce about like those old Moose Lodge shows. And yeah, like as far as like moving forward with it, like I don't want to like give myself away with like who we have ideas for in the future, but like we have, you know, reached out to our idols to play this thing, and we will continue to reach out to our idols and like offer them the fucking bag to come and play with us, like as much as we can possibly afford to pay these bands. Like we want to like, you know, we wanted to give it to like bands that mean the most to us personally, and maybe like is less of the school of thought of like ticket sales. It's more just like,
dude, you're gonna sell those tickets in Philly and Jersey. I mean, I don't even think that's not a problem.
Yeah, that's what we hope. You know, we hope that like the like just excitement of like seeing these combinations of bands together will like the combination of it will create like a sum greater than its parts. And so far that has been really working out for us.
Cool, man. So 18 more years for another album, or something? just a 7-inch soon, you know?
Yeah, I'd like to try to cut that time in half, at least.
All right. We're all getting older, man.
Yeah. I mean, with the song a month thing, I think I should be okay. But now, you know, like Baby is here. So like, you know, I got to focus on that. Thank you so much. Yeah. How old are your kids? This is a punk rock dad podcast.
Yeah, well, I have 3 kids. 2 of them are 14. One of them is 22. Steve's a little bit younger.
Yeah, mine is a 10-year-old girl. So I'm in full, you know, tween, teen, you know, dance mom's nuttiness. So those newborn days, they seem like they were forever ago. But you got to enjoy them, of course, because they go fast.
That's what I hear. Yeah, she's already getting big, like too fast for me, and yeah, I'm loving every second of it.
The question, Ken, is she going to like this kind of music? Is she going to like pop punk music? Is she going to like
She's going to like Vacationer, dude. That's good for kids.
Yeah. I feel like she'll be like, we're going to make an ambient record together before I even expose her to pop. Like, I feel like she needs to be like maybe 9 years old is when I'll first like start playing her like the punk rock stuff. Right now we're at like Bill Evans and like Aphex Twin, like Ambient Works Volume 2.
Fair.
Like, yeah, just like super light, just like pretty airy stuff. But oh my God, she loves Bill Evans and ambient music. So we're off to a great start. So far, so good.
Okay, so no Rancid or Lagwagon yet or anything like that. Like
Not yet, but it's, when she was in the womb, I was putting together like my songs. I had like a guest DJ set on Sirius XM for Faction, and I was like showing my wife like the songs that I was gonna pick. I was like showing her Lifetime and showed her this Drive Like Jehu song, and my wife is like, "Oh my God, she's kicking like crazy." So I think she's gonna really get down with Jehu.
Awesome. Hey, Ken, to wrap things up here on the show, we normally do something called Ranking It. So we rank our favorite whatever.
Yeah.
We're going to give one to you today. We're going to make it pretty easy, but we're going to put you on the spot. So give us your top 3 in order, 3, 2, 1 favorite punk rock albums of all time.
Oh, okay. 3, 2, 1 favorite punk rock albums. This is actually going to be pretty easy, I think. At this point in time, this might shuffle around like as time goes by, and it's maybe been different in the past. Okay, so I'll start with number 3 because this was the one that I was exposed to the most recently, and that would be Drive Like Jehu, Yank Crime. That record is one that like I heard Drive Like Jehu like on some emo, like first wave emo comp, and like it did not like grab me at all. Like it just sounded like kind of hollering and just like atonal angles and stuff like that. Like off time drumming. And I think it was around like 2007 when we were doing Direction. It was like after I worked with Mark Trombino is the drummer for Drive Like Jehu, for those that don't know, and produced Say It Like You Mean It. And I really had like no like context of like how important he was to punk rock, besides like the Finch guys like saying like when we had Daryl in the studio, like he didn't care that Mark did Jimmy Eat World and Blink-182. He cared that he was in Drive Like Jehu. And because I was such a massive Glassjaw fan, that really like piqued my interest. So I was like, okay, I'm going to like really like dig into Jehu now. And then I just like got high one day and like put on Yank Crime. And honestly, like it was an epiphany for me listening to that record. It was like what excited me about like listening to Nirvana when I was a really little kid, but like in this like concentrated form. So just the syrup from like Nirvana. It to me, it hit me in a way I was like, oh, this is like what Nirvana wanted to be. Like this is what Nirvana was going for. And this band just like effortlessly just put this thing out into the ether with like, I don't even know what intention, but it just like took on a life of its own. And anytime I see Mark now, it's like the number one thing that he hears from me. I just chew his ear about like, I like will take pictures with him now and I'll just be like, you made Yank Crime, dude. And he'll just be like laughing at me, just, thinking it's ridiculous. But yeah, I'm just like in awe of that record and all the performances on it. Okay. So then number 2 has got to be Lifetime. It's got to be Jersey's Best Dancers by Lifetime. I love their self-titled full length as well, but I mean the most time that I've spent with a Lifetime record is Jersey's Best Dancers, and I have to name that one as number 2 because I can name you like more bands than I have like fingers on my hands that have like just taken a huge bite out of the Lifetime sound that is like blatant to me. Like some bands I've heard like just straight up take like full lines of theirs, and like just the drumming pattern, strumming pattern, the delivery of the vocals, like the mix of like the throaty and the melodic vocal, like it's been just bitten by so many bands, and I say bitten with affection because I've loved all the bands
Sure.
that have like taken cues from their sound. But the thing that gets me is like they've never asked for the credit for all the influence that they've imparted to all these bands, and that to me that's what makes them like I think the most punk band of all times is that like put out like I'd say arguably one of the most influential punk records of my generation, and it rarely gets talked about. And they never like stick their noses up being like, what? Like we, you know, there wouldn't be a this band without us. Like they never like ask for that credit.
Humble.
Yeah, so humble. They kind of just quietly just like disappeared into the sunset, and like I couldn't possibly have more respect for that band. It's just like I've become more and more obsessed with their career arc every day, just because it's like so understated and so cool. And then number one for me is Face to Face Big Choice, and that is I'd say because it was the first punk band that I've ever found like in the wild that I've just become a complete fanatic of. Like I think that like I would have never started playing punk rock in bands, and I probably wouldn't have been connected to the Starting Line guys ultimately had I not discovered Face to Face. I mean, I had known about like Green Day before that, and that was probably as close as I had come. And like Rancid, of course, like I had like gotten Let's Go, and I had gotten Dookie, and like loved those records, and probably had like a little bit of an obsession with it, but like probably on the same level that I had with like Nirvana, but had never like identified that as like a different genre or something. But then like once I found Face to Face, like I heard it at watching the movie Tank Girl. Like she's like climbing on top of a tank and like, or like some like trucking thing. Like I remember there's this one thing, and I just like heard this song in the background that ended up being disconnected, and like had to like go through the credits and like figure out like by the process of elimination like who it was, and then figured out his Face to Face, then figured out that song's on this record Big Choice. Then there was a Descendants cover as well on that record, and then the rest of the record was just like a non-skip, just perfect playthrough. Had learned every word, had learned like the bass solo to Disconnected, had eventually toured with No Use for a Name with Matt, who played bass with Face to Face and wrote that solo. Then he got to like, I got to like show him like how I learned. He's like, oh, no, this finger goes here. It's just like that stuff that stays with me forever. And I think that like Face to Face was my first exposure to a band that was like playing really fast, aggressive music, but that had a honed in focus on melody. Whereas like I had other friends who liked punk rock, but they were into like Operation Ivy and like Minor Threat and stuff that kind of went over my head and still does a little bit, just because it was like too punk for me. Mm-hmm. And for the first time, I like really felt like seen by, you know, these much older gentlemen, but like, I was like, oh, there is like a music that's for me that's out there that's like kind of in just this like corner of the record store that you really have to look for. It's not like all over MTV or the radio or anything like that. Like it was finally just like just a light went off in my head once I heard that music. And it was in like, I think 6th grade or something like that when I first heard it. So it was just a monumental moment in my life.
Well, you guys fall into that category too for a whole lot of people. You know, music that's not the front and center. Maybe it's in the back of the record store, but it has impacted a generation. You know, we've done these ranking it's for we've done 300 something episodes. We talk about our favorite albums. Say It Like You Mean It is always up there for me. We put things in order. So whether it's that album,
Steve, Steve, that might be the best ranking that we've ever. I mean, I'm not just saying that because you're here. I'm serious. Like, people have normally said I like number 3. This is my favorite album because I like it. You actually, that was amazing. So that's going to be, you know.
Oh man, I'm so like thoroughly obsessed with music, and yeah, it's nice at this point in my life to have like a reignited passion for punk rock. And I think that there's a big reflection in Eternal Youth of these like early on influences for us. And that was honestly a big part of the objective too, was just to like hone in on like what is special to us about these records that got us into this music in the first place. And it was honestly a step in trying to recreate that style of record making.
Dude, came out fantastic. Thank you so much for taking some time to chat with us. I know you got some dad duty. I just, again, if I'm just pretending to put things into the universe and see what the hell happens, let's just say the two of my favorite cover songs ever are Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now and I'm Real. Those fucking cover songs slap, dude. I gotta hear them live at some point. You do not have to actually dignify that with a response. I'm just have to say it.
Well, we're 2 for 2, I guess, and I'm happy to hear it. Thanks, man.
Very cool. Yes. Great stuff. Appreciate your time on the show, Ken, today. Definitely going to be a favorite amongst people listening to our show. I will say that you said something about circulate and people calling back. A good friend of the show, and I have to call him out, Sam. He listened to Sense of Humor 1,500 times in a row in his car driving for 5 hours. So shout out to Sam. And Ken, I just had to let you know that because he's gonna kill me. But no, thanks for your time today. It was awesome talking to you, and hopefully everybody out there enjoyed the show too. If you guys did, check us out on Apple Podcasts. Write us a review, give us a 5-star if you really enjoyed it. And as always, don't forget to check out our shop. We have a ton of cool stuff there. You can get there via our hub. That's www.hsnepod.com.
That's right. And on the socials at HSNEpod. And we have a Patreon if you want to support the show. Shout out to our patrons, Punkish Dad, Punk Rock Monk, Punkish Dad's friend, Jeff, Tom, Ashley, Jason, Sam, Chris W, and Nick will be back with another episode next week. Ken, this was fantastic. Bucket list moment for us. I'll see it reconnect in Philly 2026, whatever it is, or hopefully before that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. See you on the field. Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Until then, keep on rocking your dad bods, throw up your rock hands, and blast the pop punk.
It's Dragon Wagon.